Welcome back to the Artie Lange Show. Okay, Rutgers basketball, some controversy surrounding Rutgers hoops. And they were giving my man Tim Pernetti a hard time today on ESPN. What a bunch of wusses. I love Pernetti. He handled himself like a gentleman. You could see he was getting mad. But, again, what is going on? The wussification, that word that's now been coined by a bunch of people. It sounds a little cliche and hacky to say it now, but it is true. What is going on? It seems that the Rutgers basketball coach is too insensitive with the players. And I don't know. I don't see it. I think people are overreacting. And to talk about this is Joey Wahler, who covers Rutgers as intensely as someone can. We appreciate coming on at the last minute, Joe.
Sure, Artie. How are you?
I'm good. So give me your take on this situation. Do they have a point here? I mean, there's some crazy stuff on tape, him throwing balls and stuff. But I mean, these are coaches. The coaches, that should be the last profession where outside physically hitting a kid, you should be allowed to just motivate these guys. Well, I mean, I don't know. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I agree with you, yes, in the sense that I think if you take the stuff that Rice is doing on that tape, certainly when you string all those different incidents from different dates together, I think it blows it up beyond the reality of what it was. Not that I'm condoning what he did, but I think that certainly multiplies it. And I think, yes, there is an element of this that people are overlooking, which is simply that, and I think this is part of your point, Artie, there are coaches all over America today that are doing many of those same things, right or wrong. And Tim Pernetti is right when he says that this has already been addressed and Mike Rice has already been punished, whether people agree with the punishment or not. And so I think to fire him now, while it's what many people want, and while on some level it might be the right thing to do, in a way, you're also persecuting a guy twice. You're basically trying a guy twice for the same crime. You know, people are saying, oh, we had no idea he was doing these things. What do you think he was doing? I mean, some of this had come out already.
Yeah.
And you know as well as I do that people at a place like Rutgers, as big as Rutgers, that has as many athletic department and sports team followers as Rutgers does, word gets around. People, it's not like no one knew what Mike Rice was up to. There were plenty of people that knew what he was up to. But I think that maybe what Tim Pernetti didn't realize, as much as he's tried to do the right thing here, is what an uproar the video was going to cause. And I think, unfortunately for Tim, it's now gotten to the point where it's probably out of his hands, regardless of what he's tried to do. And I think, Artie, what he's tried to do clearly from the interviews and what he said about it all day long is he had tried, whether people agree with it or not, to maintain some continuity in the program. He tried to give this guy a second chance. They're going to the Big Ten next year. And I think, the last thing he wanted to do was have to go to a new league and change all the things that have to be changed to accommodate that and also hire a new coach. And unfortunately, I think now, it might not be up to him anymore.
Well, that's what social media can do. It can take stuff out of people's hands. It's like, and put it into the hands of the people who, participate in social media, which could be everyone from an expert like yourself to some moron sitting in a basement in Wyoming who can't leave the house because he's too stupid, though. He can't find the front door. And that's what makes it really annoying. Can you remind us real quick, was there one specific incident with Mike Rice that caused him to get punished? And tell us exactly what the punishment was.
The punishment was that he was suspended for a few games and he was fined, and I believe the fine was $75,000, which some reports say is a quarter of his base annual salary.
A lot of money for him. A lot of money.
Well, I believe the lowest paid coach in the Big East.
Yeah.
So a lot of money to, Joe from down the street, but by Big East standards, not. But in any event, he was, to answer your question, not suspended, according to Pernetti at the time, for any one incident.
Okay.
And talked about the fact that it had simply come to his attention that things had gone on, and at that point they decided to act. So, one thing that I think is also key here is the fact that, Rutgers fans are hungry for a winner. To say the least. I mean, they haven't been to the NCAA basketball tournament already since 1991.
People don't realize that. It's a long time. Yep, that's a real long time for Rutgers. Yep.
And because of that, Rutgers fans are very impatient. They did not draw well this year, even though they had a decent season for them. it's certainly a season that started out pretty well. I mean, for about the first two-thirds of the season, they thought they had a shot at making the NIT, which to some programs would be, nothing, but to them would have been a pretty good step forward under Rice. And yet they still weren't drawing because Rutgers fans are very impatient. They're looking well beyond that. And as a result, I think that clearly, well, not I think, I know, they've wanted this guy out for a couple of years now. He just completed his third year. And so certainly, without question, one thing that's in play here is that what Rice did on that tape aside, people are ready for the most part. And I know, naturally, working in Jersey, covering Rutgers, I know many Rutgers supporters who talk to me about their situation all the time. Most Rutgers people wanted this guy out already long before this happened. And so this is as good an excuse. Not that what he did was right, but this is as good an excuse as any for them to call for his firing, because the flip side is, let me ask you this. Do you think that if Mike Rice had taken Rutgers to the NCAA basketball tournament for the last year or two, let's say this year and last year, and now this tape came out, do you think there'd be anywhere near this hue and cry to get him fired?
Yeah, nobody cares. That's a great point. You're exactly right. So this guy, basically what you're saying is, Joe, is someone who follows it as much as anybody, he and covers the team. He's in trouble. His job's in trouble because the social media machine is working against him. There is a tape. There are complaints. And the alumni and the fans all want him gone. So he already had one chance already, so he's not going to be their coach next year. That's what you're saying?
That's certainly the way it appears. I mean, a few hours ago, Governor Christie weighed in on this. Did I say weighed in?
That way, by the way, excellent. Excellent way to use that. Perfect.
Practicing my ad libs, Artie.
Very nice. Very nice.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, when Governor Christie is, coming out as being against Mike Rice's actions as the governor, being that, Rutgers is the state university of New Jersey, that's something that's gonna count, to say the least. So I think, Tim Pernetti is going to probably have this decision made, above his head and beyond his control. And then there are people that are talking about the possibility of Tim's job being in jeopardy. But, with the fundraising job that Tim has done,
I doubt
the other things he's done. Yeah, I mean, Tim, look, let's be clear about one thing. People, and I think this, look, one thing we're clearly talking about here as a theme to this whole story is people overreacting, right? And
definitely.
Another example is you've got people suddenly lumping Pernetti in with Rice and saying, you know what? Pernetti needs to go too. But let's be clear about one thing. Rice is a guy who, let's be honest, he's been a loser at Rutgers. Mm-hmm. Tim Pernetti has a sparkling resume that's certainly much more checkered with success than Rice's is. He's got more credit built up, to say the very least, than Rice does. So I think Rice will be fired. I think certainly Tim will stay. And now there is for those of you Rutgers fans listening, there is a silver lining here, which is now you're going to have to find a new coach in all likelihood if he gets the axe. And now, because of all the Big Ten millions that they have coming their way at Rutgers joining the Big Ten next year, they're going to have a hell of a lot more than that $300,000 to pay the next coach.
Yeah, getting rid of Tim Pernetti would be a mistake on every level. I agree. Huge. And look, and Christie being against Mike Rice is a big deal because Christie is far from a wussy on any level.
Now, let me tell you before I go, if I may, let me tell you what Tim Pernetti, to sum this all up, if I can, let me tell you what Tim Pernetti really needs to do. I remember that years ago on the Howard Stern show, you once challenged a Penn State women's basketball player to a game of one-on-one.
That's right.
Woman called in. You had been knocking some, I don't know, I guess you were critical of women's sports in some way.
Basketball in particular. Go ahead.
not overly critical, just basically saying that it was a completely different sport. But anyway,
right.
She called in, took offense. You guys went at it, as I recall, and she challenged you to a game of one-on-one, and you not only accepted that challenge, but you guaranteed that you would beat her butt, and then you went out and did that. So what Tim Pernetti needs to do, Artie, is find that tape And with all his connections in college athletics, he needs to somehow replace the Rice tape with the Artie Lange beating the women's basketball players' butt tape and all be forgotten. Then that'll be the talk of the country.
Well, now listen, the night before the matchup in Vegas, I had 35 shots of tequila and maybe a couple other things I can't get into right now. I'll have to discuss it with my lawyer. She got to bed at 9 o'clock, and she was 24. I was 35. And in a game to 15, I had her 12-4, 14-9, ran out of gas, and then did lose. But by that point, I had made my point, and everybody accepted it. Brent, anything to add here?
Well, I just want to weigh in. You know, I've had the opportunity to watch a couple of his, to sit in on two of his practices. And actually 2 weeks ago, I did back-to-back nights. He came on at CBS Sports Network and did tournament shows. The guy is a fantastic person off the floor, okay? And in the two practice, again, this is only two practices, but in the two practices I was able to sit and watch, does he yell a lot? Does he use foul language? Yes. But I never saw any of the stuff from the video. And B, he looked like any other men's basketball coach, or at least 50% of them, that I see in other practices. So I believe it's a little bit unfair, as we've alluded to here, to right off the top with the video to just string a bunch of video clips together and say that he's a bad guy. And he's won a lot of basketball. He completely turned things around at Robert Morris to get this job and to win 5 games in the Big East with the injuries that he's gone through this year and last year. He's won some good games for them. So for everyone to cave in on this guy, to me, is completely unfair.
Unfortunately, we got to go, but I agree with you. I think he's going to find another job somewhere else, but it's the perfect storm against him right now at Rutgers, and Joey makes that point. It's a good one. I think he's gone. But, Joe, we got to roll. We really appreciate it, man, and thank you for bringing up that game against the Broad. It really is a highlight of my life.
And it just goes to prove, Artie, if we can wrap by relating that to this, that, she was in bed early, as you said. You were doing shots at tequila, which proves that doing things the right way in sports isn't always the way to go.
Or in anything, my friend, including politics and religion and everything. Joe, I appreciate you coming on. Talk to us again, brother.
All right, man. Thank you.
Thanks so much. The great Joey Wahler, really summing it up well and giving us a good info there. We'll be back with the last minutes of this hour.